All right, so we're making a little bit more headway, and I think it is Sunday night, ready to put in my order. Y'all like my owl blanket down here? This garage door, of course your garage door is never sealed up perfect around it, so it's a little cold. So even though I am climate controlled and I got the heat at like 75 right now, when you get down there, heat rises, of course. It stays cool down there, so laying on that cold floor just sucks. So got an old owl blanket that we put down here on the floor for wintertime to keep us warm. Anyway, back to the motor. I am laying all this stuff out. So earlier I got interrupted by Harper and the wife, but I started to build this bracket. So basically I'm going to cut this thing back, but I put a piece of corner iron here, or angle for aluminum, and I have screwed my clear view to it. Now it is spaced off of the fan shroud because bolts go into the clear view this way, so there's not a head on that, so they screw into the other side. Now I had thought about just mounting this clear view to the fan shroud, but the problem with that is that fan shroud was made to be lightweight and it was made thin, and Mike had just tack welded around it, so I didn't want that to be my main support. So I tied into the actual attachment point for the shroud, and then we're gonna nutsert the fan shroud right here and bolt it to that. But that way the corner aluminum 90 is carrying some of the weight, even though it is still attached to the radiator. It's just not 100% depending on that. And I might even make a straight piece that comes across here and ties back to this fin also, so maybe bolts into here and here to just add some strength. Not 100% sure on that, but that's going to get tied in like this. This is going to get trimmed back, and then I'm thinking, let's see if I can find my other piece. We are going to take a piece like this and we're going to weld some washers. So we'll take a piece like this that I've bent up and we'll weld some washers or whatever to the end of it possibly. And we have these bolts right here off of this alternator bracket, which is very sturdy. We can come, and now I got to cut this to length, but we can basically come in here and make it so that it attaches down there, as you can see, to that bolt right there. Put a washer on that, cut and bend this one, and then make it where another piece will hit these screw holes underneath the clear view right here and basically bolt up like that. So that's my thoughts on that. That way it gives this backside a little support so it's not shaky. I don't want it all just depending on this. I just kind of want that tied in, but I want some thicker rod to tie into that. Now originally I thought about making a big plate right here and putting it on that and all that, but then it just eliminates you being able to get your hands up in here. The only thing that I have that runs through here about right down here or up, in this area, is the radiator hose, but it can zigzag through this piece right here. So we're not going to finish that tonight. I wanted to just get this mocked up so I can actually order my lines. But this week, that's what we're going to be working on. Is we're going to build this line, or this hose, hopefully one night this week, and then as we get the other hoses in, we'll do that, and then we will fabricate that mount also this week. Need to do the valve cover this week if I get time. I'm going to have a very rough week between work and everything like that. And then we have this line that comes over just like before and goes to the radiator down there like that, and then this line shoots back there. We went over how the bottom of the radiator line, it comes up, goes in there. I'm about to pull that piece out and take that to work so Mike can weld that. And then I was using my old lines as a tape measure and a reference for what bends. So when I bought these old lines, these were the ones that originally in the car. One's 24 inches, the seller said, and one's 25 inches. One of these lines leaked. I'm pretty sure it was not the fitting. I'm pretty sure it was the line. Man, I really hope it wasn't the fitting. The fittings look fine. Hopefully we don't have to disturb that adapter on the block. I'm pretty sure it was a line just, taking all the abuse and leaking around here. So we're only going to use one of these. I'll put one on, and then if it leaks, I'll change it out to the other. But I was using it basically as a tape measure. So what we're going to do is we are going to be coming out of the block. So you have your adapter down there, and I'm explaining that in another video on how what mistake I made. But we're going to be coming out of the motor, and then we're going to come under here or up through here. It's hopefully going to come out in the motor and up here, or it's going to come out in the motor, go down, and shoot up between here. Either way, when you get the hose actually in, then you can kind of figure out your smoothest routing, because we are using used hoses. But we'll either come up right here under this, and that gives us a straight shot into here. So the line that I'm ordering for this pass has a slight 45 on it, and then down there on the bottom, it kind of has a hook back, like a 120 degree angle, I think. So it's a pretty good look back. So it should hook, because you know our fittings kind of come out like that, or straight down. So it should hook us back in this general direction. We should be able to snake up and then come into this at a 45 as we come uphill. We should be able to kill into this one. So out the block on the out label, in the filter on the in label. And then what we'll do is we'll use this line, whichever one's good, because this works perfect. So this is going to be out the clear view. That's a 90, as you can see. That's a 90. And then that's going to go straight down there to our oil filter, our spin-on oil filter. And that allows that 90 to come in beautifully right there and go straight into there. Now, like I said, I'm just using this as a tape measure, basically. One of these lines are going to get used, one's going to get trashed, or put in the trailer as a spare maybe, because, I mean, it does leak, but it is usable. This is 25 inches or 24 inches. So when I screw this on this right here, that puts me right here. As you can see, that puts me right here where I'm banging on my filter adapter, which is where we need to go. So I know 25 inches will do it. I obviously don't want it right there on the belt, so we'll obviously route it. But the one I'm ordering is actually 30 inches. I think 30 or 33 inches. So being this is 25 and this will make the run, 30 should get us perfect. And the one I'm ordering also has like a 120 kickback, and then actually has a 45. So it won't be a tight 90 like this. It'll actually go up a little bit. So it'll either, if we need to take length out of it, we'll kick it in this direction and we'll kind of go up and then dive it down and under like that. Or if we need it tighter, we can dive it out of this side kind of, and then catch this little curve that's in here and hug it tight in here like this, okay? Zip tie it off of these maybe, and then dive down and back, because hopefully that's how we get us in. So when you're ordering these used lines like this, we went over it, searched eBay for AN hose or AN line, change your search results to used, and then you're gonna see a bunch of these NASCAR takeoff lines. Now when I'm measuring for, like, let's say this long run, okay? So to come up with my measurement on this long run, to help you out, is what I do is I take me a tape measure and I literally go from here to here. So I know I have to dive down about right there, and I know my fitting's about right there. So I'm gonna call that 14, 15-ish. And actually earlier I bent my tape measure, kind of took it like that, popped it like that. So that's 15, okay? 15 right there to right there, okay? And then what you do is you take your tape measure, dive it down to your next bend, add them numbers together, and then go from your next bend to your end point, add them numbers together, and then you have a rough length, you know, of that. Now you could use house wire. There's a million different ways people to do it. You could use the vacuum hose, you know, and kind of stick the vacuum hose in here. That would work really good. I actually had a scrap piece somewhere right here. So you could get you a piece of like push lock line, you know, and then cut it and measure it. You could do like this. So you can literally just stick it inside, you know, and kind of bend it. So if we bend it like this, and then we come in here and just stuck it up in there, you know, and then routed it down like that, then we can literally kind of hold it in place, draw a Sharpie line on it, because you obviously don't want to measure the whole thing, lay it on your bench, and then measure one Sharpie line to the other, and that would kind of get you your length, you know. So get smart. You can use a string, but it's going to fall everywhere. I like to just do the measurement points, because every time I found out in the past, when you order one of these lines and you think it's going to work, a lot of times it will, but a lot of times you got to kind of kick it this way or up over this to either take slack up or whatever, but they turn out looking good. Like this one right here, you know, this angle is amazing. I mean, it's perfect. It kicks us straight up like we need to be, but then this angle is technically too much. So the picture perfect angle for this would be a 90. It would look so much better if this line had a 90 on it on this end instead of that. But when you're buying used lines, you make it work, but this line literally has, you know, hardly any play in it. You know, and at some point, I would love to replace this. I can go back. I know the angle of this piece, and I know the length of this piece. So if I could find one same length with this angle, but with a 90, then I'll order it. But right now, that's not a necessity. That stuff we can go back later, and it's always amazing to have lines laying around so you can use them, you know, just like this one. Like that line, I won't throw that line away. It'll either go in the trailer as a spare, or I'll tape it and label it as leaking line for a tape measure. So you can literally screw it in, try different fittings, and then over time, you know, you'll gather up lines. Such as we have these over here that I won't throw away because I have purchased them, and I can come over here to my pile and see if anything works. So this is actually the first line we bought for that one I was just talking about. And I was hoping to go straight in and everything, but this one was a little too tight. So we might be able to use that on another project. And then we bought this pre-made line for something. So this is a pretty big guy. We don't need it, but you know, if you need that size, it's a good measuring tool. Even if you didn't need that size, if you were smaller, you could technically use that to measure. And then we have that big dash 20. The dash 20s are hard to find, and they're expensive normally. I got that one for a good deal, but wasn't able to use it, and still not able to use it. And then we have this little guy right here. So none of these will get thrown away. Them are your universal lines, but none of them will get thrown away. They'll just be gathered up if we need them for something else or if we need to pull a measurement. Fortunately, right now, if I had the money, I would order 2 different lines, long ones, so I can make that long run the best possible. But financially, we're a little bit strapped. We still haven't went over the numbers of what I paid for this, but I'm a little bit strapped, and that's the reason why I'm gambling and only ordering one of what I think will work. And if it don't work, it's just going to set us back another week, because then I'm going to have to go buy another one. But hopefully it'll pay off. I've done this quite a few times now. This whole car is plumbed with Brown & Miller ultralights pretty much. There is some steel braiding ones in here. These are NASCAR Brown & Miller ones. So everything with blue fittings is pretty much Brown & Miller on here. All of these are NASCAR fuel log lines for the fuel rails. Brown & Miller stuff. All of them are Brown & Miller. Radiator hose. This big dash 20 down here is a Brown & Miller ultralight radiator hose. So this is a really freaking nice piece down here. It's lightweight, it's flexible, and it's amazing, and it works out perfect this time for our down piece. Our lower layer radiator hose, when last time that thing worked out good for our upper, but we're switching it up like I just said, you know, a few minutes ago. In the other video, we're gonna remake. These are like your universal lines, but they're so freaking heavy and they just don't bend good compared to them Brown & Miller ultralights. These things right here are just freaking amazing. And Tin Soldier Race Cars actually just did a video on switching from your generic, like, cheaper lines, or even, you know, them steel braiding lines, just generic other lines, and going your Brown & Miller ultralights. They literally saved a lot of weight off of a race car that they were dropping weight off of by just switching lines. It's amazing how light these Brown & Miller ultralights are. And you can call them up if you know your length and your fittings, you know, and you have cheap Amazon lines. You can call Brown & Miller up and order these actual lines. These are crimp-ons, and they'll make them to your exact fitting if you need a swivel or not and the length. But if you watch any LS Nasty videos, they went over it more in detail, and they've actually showed you the facility of Brown & Miller. But these things are very expensive. So when you buy these used NASCAR takeoff lines, they're in amazing shape. As you can tell, you know, they're literally still all shiny and clean, but you're buying these for pennies on the dollar. And it just makes, man, it's just amazing. Now, it takes some work because you've got to figure out your length, and then you have to actually shop for the hose itself. And what I do for that is, like earlier today, I went on eBay, and I knew I needed, I think that's dash 10. I typed in, you know, dash 10 AN, switch results to dash, or 10 AN, or 10 AN hose, switch my search results to used. And I went through there and I added every single black hose to my watch list. Okay, that's where I started first. So I didn't add any stainless steel braided stuff like that. So just black hose so it would match. Most of them were blue fittings, but there were some red with silver fittings. So then this afternoon, what I did was I come out here and I pulled my measurements. Now I've already done my homework in my house where I have all of the black hose on my watch list that's used in that AN size. Pulled my measurements and I went to my watch list, and that narrows it down. And now I can go through there and look at other measurements that are offered and see if I can get close to it. Now, obviously you don't want really shorter than your measurement. So you want longer, but you want it as close to your measurement as you can get. Most of the time, shorter is going to get you in trouble unless you were really providing extra slack when you were measuring these out. From there, I had two hoses that were extremely close in size. Both of them will work, but one had red fitting and one had blue fittings. So what I then look at next is the bends on the fittings, okay? So which hose has the more appropriate bend that would fit my application? And at this time I'm sitting in front of my car and I'm looking and I'm thinking, what ended up with this situation was both lines actually had the same bends. The reason why is because this probably was a takeoff of a race car. NASCARs, all the race cars are pretty close to the same, but this was probably the same exact line, you know, let's say power steering or fuel, whatever. It probably went to the same parts, meaning they were all within about the same location. And what it was is that whoever made them lines at Brown and Miller just simply maybe went an inch heavy or 2 inches light or something like that. So being that they were the same length, extremely close, usable same length, same bends to the end, I then gave the red fittings a boot and ended up with the blue fittings. Now for these lines, I would love for them to also be insulated like the 2R already have, since they're oil lines and, you know, they're down there near the motor and stuff. But I think I'm only ordering one that has insulation on it. Now you can order the insulation separate, but it's amazing when you can get the correct length with insulation, correct bends, all of that, but it always don't work. So I do got one that's coming off the motor without insulation. Might go back and order that later. But the big thing right now is just to get this thing up and running and not acquire any more debt than we have to. So we put in that order. That's going to be the plans for this week, is to keep trucking, moving forward on this. And I also talked to my wiring guy, and he said check with him at the end of this week about getting me in on Friday. So might be cutting out of work with this thing on the trailer, taking it straight to wiring. Whether it's running or not, we got to make some changes to the sensors, some stuff Kevin wants changed, and some stuff that we need to fix, and maybe firing it this weekend. So even if we get it wired on Friday, if all of my lines come in and they fit, I should have all my parts by Saturday. Might get a fire off on Saturday or Sunday. If everything's smooth, we're gonna be calling Kevin and going to the dyno. So make sure y'all smash that bell button. If you're new, go ahead and subscribe. It's going to be a really cool journey. I'm going to teach y'all or take y'all along the way on every step, just like I did the first time before we blew it up. I even carried you through the blow up, through the process. We also still have the video coming out. It's going to be more technical. Then I'm going to go over what was done to the motor this time, what I tore up, and it's going to be really more in depth. It's going to show the damages that I can see. It's going to go over pricing. It's going to go over all of that. It's going to be more of a technical video. So hopefully y'all are ready for this ride. I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks, y'all.